What's happening? A good Monday to all of you. Thanks for joining me. As always, it is very much appreciated. And Jerod Mayo spoke with the media this morning. And when Jerod Mayo speaks, he says an awful lot. We have a lot to get to during this show. Thanks for joining me on YouTube Live. The only place you can catch this show live now is YouTube. Now, on demand, you've got Spotify, Apple Pods, and of course, you can catch this later on with the YouTube channel. But if you want to watch it live, 11 a.m. Monday through Friday, every single weekday morning, YouTube is the place to catch it. All right, so Jerod Mayo and company down in Orlando for the league meetings, and he just covered a bunch. He talked about free agency. He talked about the draft. He talked about this current roster. So let's get to it. Let's begin with free agency. Mayo said that the free agent class this offseason wasn't really deep. And he continued to say, quote, there were targets we wanted, but it just didn't work out. Everyone wants that big signing, but at the same time, as we continue to put this team together, I think there has to be a process. It has to be a methodical process. And look, when there is a guy that we want to get, the Crafts have already told us they'll spend the money. So first and foremost, we've covered the idea that this free agency class wasn't as deep as some people are trying to paint it to be, especially on the offensive side. Evan Lazar wrote about this months ago. When you looked at the free agency, you looked at defensively the most significant pieces that were going to be available. When you look offensively, there were really only three guys that we spent a lot of time talking about. Calvin Ridley, right? Tyron Smith, and Jonah Williams. Ridley, he was offered $40 million guaranteed by the Patriots, said thanks, but no thanks. Tyron Smith came out and said the other day it was the Jets or it was the Cowboys. Jonah Williams, Patriots saw him as a right tackle. They said to themselves, we have Mike Onwenu. Onwenu is our right tackle, so we're not going to extend an offer to Jonah Williams. But this class overall, on the side of the ball that you needed the most help, it was pretty thin. Now, if you wanted somebody like Hollywood Brown, overpay for that guy. Of course, he ended up going to the Chiefs. So Mayo said the quiet part out loud, which is this free agency class was not deep. We didn't have a ton of guys to choose from. The class wasn't deep. Ridley, Smith, Williams were really the only guys worth getting into an in-depth discussion. The other part of what Mayo had to say that was interesting to me was he said they had targets. He added the S. That's plural, folks. And so, when you look at this idea that the Patriots only went after Calvin Ridley hard, I would say that's the only thing that we know. That's the only thing that had been reported on solidly. We know they wanted to target Tyron Smith. How hard did they go after Smith? Did they have a chance to get Smith? All of those things, the details, we don't know all of the details when we talk about Tyron Smith, Jonah Williams, and other players. We've heard bits and pieces. Again, they wanted to go after Smith. They didn't land him. He said Jets or Cowboys. Jonah Williams, they thought he was a right tackle. So who were the other guys that were targeted by the Patriots? We don't know. Hopefully, we'll find that out. But Mayo made it clear today. They had targets, multiple guys they were looking at to try to get this team better as soon as they could. Now, as far as the cheap part of the offseason, because again, Mayo told the media this morning that the Crafts, they have already told us they will spend the money if we ask them to spend the money. Quote, the Crafts have already told us they'll spend the money. That's a direct quote. And so people with this idea that this has been a cheap offseason, the Crafts have been cheap, I disagreed with from the very beginning for several reasons. If you are trying to do things cheap this offseason, then you would not sign Mike Onwenu to a $38 million guaranteed deal because you had other options. You know what a cheap ownership does this offseason? I'm not talking about the cash spent in the past 10 years. This is a new regime. Do you know what a cheap ownership group does? They don't spend almost $40 million guaranteed on Onwenu and slide him to tackle. They say we could sign Jonah Williams or somebody else for the fraction of that cost and play City So at right guard. That's the cheap way. That's not the way the Patriots chose. Offering Calvin Ridley $40 million guaranteed, last time I checked, that is not being cheap this offseason. Putting the transition tag on Duggar for almost $14 million, to me, that is not the cheap path The cheap path during a depressed market at safety would be let Duggar walk, go find another guy for $8 million a year. So the actions are what counts. All right, let's continue here with Mayo because, again, he had a ton to say and we got to cover. He says he doesn't regret his burn some cash comment. He didn't mean it literally. Quote, I know we have a lot of cash to utilize, but we are going to utilize it the right way. I always get a kick out of the idea of the burn some cash and how people went bananas about it. First, the tone of the comment, I would tell you, was tongue-in-cheek. Go back and listen to the audio. Mayo sounds like he's joking around. Now, they do have cash to burn. They do have money to spend. They've got to get to the cap floor, as we've discussed. But that comment alone in a vacuum, Mayo was clearly, at least to me, in jest. He was in jest during a radio interview, and he also walked it back. And it's weird how people don't look at the comments from Mayo and admit that he walked it back about a month later, if not sooner than that. They have spent, they've wanted to spend more, and I think they will spend more. Mayo says ownership doesn't want to be involved in football decisions. Now, before I get into this part of it, give us a like, give us that thumbs up. We're not streaming to, Twitter or Facebook today. This is YouTube exclusive starting today, so we need all the likes that we can get on YouTube to drive this traffic. It is very important this week. We're not trying to send people to other places. We're sending them right here. Give us that like and also subscribe. Trying to hit 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th. Trying to make that push. We're just under 300 away from that. So every like, every subscription means the world. Help us out. And also Spotify, Apple Pods. If you're catching it on the demand, rate and review. If you're catching it on YouTube on demand, you could still hit that thumbs up, and it means just as much. And, of course, the Patreon page. We're going to have a draft night Discord chat at the Patreon. We're going to do some post-game playoff action with the Celtics and the Bruins. Patreon.com/Nick Cattles, $5 a month. Check it out. Here's a part of the conversation that's been annoying me, and we really haven't gotten to it much up until today. Mayo with the media said ownership doesn't want to be involved in football decisions. We've talked about Robin Glazer. We've talked about Jonathan Kraft and how involved ownership will be. This is what really irritates me when we have that conversation. Everyone publicly has said that ownership doesn't want to make football decisions. Robert Kraft has said it. Mayo has said it with Kraft sitting right there. Elliott Wolf has said it. Now, of course, the Patriots could be totally lying, could be totally misleading everybody. That is possible. But the thing that annoys me is there's no evidence to prove the contrary. All we know from the reporting is that these decisions that have been made so far have been made by Elliott Wolf. The free agent signings have been made by Elliott Wolf. The pro days, the combine, all of the homework that's being done. There has not been a Kraft near the operation. So this idea of, Jonathan Kraft is just going to walk on in and decide the offseason, whoever is saying that out there, whoever's putting it into the ether, they have 0.0 evidence of that being the case. And if you don't have any evidence, if you don't have any proof, and if everybody that is involved with this operation is telling you that ownership does not want to make football decisions, then if you're saying that, you're just saying it to pour gasoline on a fire to get people worked up. And that is ridiculous to me. Until there's absolute proof, until there's a single solitary report that Jonathan Kraft is involved directly, or Robin Glazer is telling Jerod Mayo and Elliott Wolf how to do business, then can we just stop with that narrative? Because it's crap. There's zero evidence of any of that. Just want to get that off my chest. All right, let's get to the weaponized comments last month, right? Everybody, how will the Patriots weaponize the offense? Jerod Mayo notes, with the quarterback uncertainty, it was difficult to attract some of their targets. says they'll look into the draft and hope to build up this team where it's a destination for future free agent targets. Quote, you want to get guys that are magnets. He mentioned Tom Brady. Guys wanted to play with Tom. It's the other end of the spectrum. It's like, what pieces do we have to attract those outside guys, unquote. This is something that we have discussed over the last couple of weeks. I'll say it one more time for the people in the back. How we doing out there? You can't make anybody sign a contract. You can't force anyone to agree to be a New England Patriot. The decision is made by the player, and not every player is the same. We have to stop treating players as monoliths. They are not. They're individuals. And so every single free agent makes the decision based on their own circumstances and what they think is right for them. Now, the most money, the majority of the time, gets the deal done. I'm not going to be disingenuous. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the most money doesn't move a free agent. Of course it does. Some people are out to get the very most money. That's all they consider. And if you offer them the most, they sign and they're happy with it. That is not the case for everyone. When you're Tyron Smith and you're 33 years old and you've dealt with roughly 1 billion injuries and you might be looking at the last year of your career, do you want to sign with a team who offers you the bag but has Jacoby Brissett as quarterback, no wide receiver one coming off of a 4-win season? Or do you want to go to a team like the Jets that say, hey, if you play, if you get on the field and you continue to play, you can make the bag in 2024, and you have a chance to play with a future Hall of Fame quarterback with, 2 receivers now in Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams that is going to help this operation, and you have a chance to get to the playoffs, and you have a chance to win a freaking ring. It's a completely different world. We have to stop treating everybody the same way, throwing every free agent in the same bucket and being lazy about it. It's not how the real world works. Situations matter. Here's Mayo on the Patriots' pursuit of wide receiver upgrades. I know we're all talking about wide receiver, right? All concerned about wide receiver. Mayo said, quote, we are still open on the trade market, but I'd also say this is a pretty deep class as far as receivers are concerned. It's all on the table right now. So I know Greg Bedard, my buddy, is very strong on the trade option. He believes that the Patriots are looking to make a deal, could make a deal. He has said he'll be very disappointed if the Patriots fail to make a trade for a wide receiver one. So when you look at Mayo saying this directly today, as clear as can be, we are still open on the trade market. Well, that tells us the Patriots are looking at guys like T. Higgins. They're looking at guys like Brandon Ayuk and DK Metcalf and Cortland Sutton and the names that we have brought up. Their phone lines are waiting to be picked up. I'm sure they've made calls. They're having conversations. They understand that they need a wide receiver one, which is why they offered Calvin Ridley $40 million guaranteed. So Mayo says they're open to the trade possibility, and the Patriots are actually in a good position to make a deal if they want to make that deal. Think about it. Their draft picks this year have incredible value. You're at the top of every single round. You have 4 picks in the top 103 in a very deep draft. So you have the picks this year. You also, if you are a team, let's say that you're T. Higgins and you want out, and the Bengals know that, and they're talking to the Patriots. And you get the Patriots and the Bengals having this trade conversation. Cincinnati knows that the Patriots are unlikely going to be a playoff team in 2024. So that means the value of the picks in 2025 are also pretty high. If you're making a deal with the Patriots and they say, we're willing to give you number 34 in a future pick in 2025, since he says we're right at the top of the second round, and we think if we can get a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick in next year's draft from this team, we'll be in a really good spot then as well. So you have the pick value if you're the Patriots. You have the money if you're the Patriots. You have the need if you are Jerod Mayo and the rest of this franchise. And you also, I like when Mayo said that, hey, don't forget it's a pretty deep class at that position, because he doesn't want the Patriots hanging over a barrel. And so when you say this is a very deep class, you're letting these teams know. You're letting the Cincinnati's know, yeah, we're willing to make a deal. We're open to making a deal. However, we have the 34th pick in the draft. We could just draft somebody who we think we can develop into that guy. We would like Higgins right now because it helps us right now, but don't get it twisted. We're not desperate to trade for your guy because we have good picks and this draft is deep. It's negotiation protection. All right, let's continue. Jerod Mayo with the media. He says he's still confident that the team can fill needs at quarterback, wide receiver, and tackle before the season begins. Quote, it's going to take time. Our philosophy as far as putting this roster together, you want to draft and develop when it's all said and done. I have 100% confidence in Elliott and his staff in weaponizing the offense and really getting us better as an overall team. They're not backing away from weaponizing it. They're not backing away from the comment that Elliott Wolf made during the combine. And I think that tells us that they are convinced that they are going to add to this offense, and they're going to add to this offense in a significant manner. They're doubling down on using weaponize, which I actually like because they're not running away from it. They know what they said. They still plan on making this offense better. They still plan on weaponizing this offense. And there are a number of different ways they can do that. Still lots of time in this offseason. So I like the fact that you've got Mayo saying, yeah, we can still weaponize this thing. We can still do this. Now, there was one thing that Mayo said that kind of drove me crazy. And it was when he said that the current roster is ready to support a rookie quarterback. I'm calling BS on that one. Calling BS on it, Jerod. You are not 100% ready to support a rookie quarterback with what you've got right now. You don't have a number one receiver. You don't have a left tackle that we know of. So don't try to sell me on this. Okay? You want to talk to me about a long-term build? You want to talk to me about you're still building this thing? Don't tell me that currently on March 25th that you have a roster that is ready to support a rookie quarterback, because in my estimation, you do not have that roster. You've got two gigantic holes to fill before I would sit there and say that you have that roster that can support a rookie QB1. So call him BS on that one. As far as frustrated fans, Mayo talking to all of you. Don't forget, give us that thumbs up. Means the world to us. Only streaming live to YouTube now. So every single thumbs up that we can get, it will build this brand. It will expand our reach, which is just so critical. And also subscribe. 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th is the goal. We're under 300 subscriptions away. So don't forget to give us that thumbs up, subscribe, and get notified. Here's Mayo to all the frustrated fans. Quote, I understand the frustration. I understand the expectation that has been really built over the last 20 years. But at the same time, hopefully the fans understand that we're trying to build this the right way. We're trying to bring in pieces that we think are for the long term. I think there's a combination between bringing people in for the short term, but also you have to think long term. That's always the hard thing to do. The name I thought of when reading this quote was Keenan Allen. The balance that you have to deal with. You are trying to balance short-term and long-term. And it might seem like the best idea in the world to bring somebody in to, appease the people. But you also have to keep in mind the long-term ramifications and what you are trying to build. Elliott Wolf and Jerod Mayo are focused on the next 5 years, not the next 5 months. That is the ultimate goal. Now, I would have traded for Keenan Allen. I would have made that deal. There is a reasonable pushback and counter to that idea. Mayo said, quote, I would just ask Patriots fans for patience. There will be players that hit the wire, free agents, guys that are explosive, whatever you want to say. There will be guys in the draft. There will be guys after the draft. So just sit back and kind of, let us do our job going forward. So Jerod's asking you for patience. We know we have a job to do. We know we have holes on this roster. Take a deep breath and give us some time. And I have been preaching this for the last couple of weeks, even though people don't want to hear it, even though it's not going to drive the mob out there with their pitchforks and torches ready to burn down Gillette Stadium. This offseason still has time. Elliott Wolf and Mayo are well aware of the holes that are on this roster. They know it. If I know it, they know it. They're not blindly looking at things saying, oh, no, we're perfectly set here. And Wolf and Mayo, they deserve the time to put this thing together. And as I've said before, if we get to May 1st, if it's post-draft, and there is still no suitable answer at wide receiver, and there's no suitable answer at left tackle, and we're not looking at the quarterback position with somebody who you can develop or start right away, depending on who they pick. If that's the case, then I will get my pitchfork, I will get my torch ready, and I will start my march towards Gillette Stadium. But Mayo and Wolf deserve the time to try to build this. And the draft has always been phase one of the process. It's the most important phase. It's the most important factor when you're trying to rebuild a 4-win team that was completely decimated offensively. So they deserve the time. I'm going to have patience. I don't know if you're going to have patience. I'm not going to tell you how to fan. You can be angry if you'd like on March 25th. That's your call. All right, before I move forward, Trenton jumps in with a super chat. Man, oh man, I appreciate this. I appreciate it a ton. A $20 super chat from Trenton supporting the machine. Great show. Well, thank you. I will tell you that the last couple of weeks have been the two busiest weeks of this podcast's existence. We started in September. If you're just joining us, the idea is to provide an alternative to what you may hear day in and day out there from the rest of the media. Now, I don't pass judgment on those people. I disagree with a lot of things that some, if not most of them, say, but they do what they do. They've been very successful. I do it a different way. I think you could be informative and entertaining and do it a different way. That's what I'm out to prove. And I appreciate every single person who sends a super chat like Trenton, who likes this program, comes back every day and gives us that thumbs up to beat the algorithm with YouTube. I appreciate everybody who has subscribed to this show and they continue to subscribe. The haters can continue to hate. The people can question all they want, but we are marching towards 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th. That is the goal. I believe we're going to get there, and I believe we're going to get there because I've said this since I was growing up. Boston needs different. And I think a lot of people are kind of tired of hearing the same old, same old. Doesn't mean that way is the wrong way and not successful. I just believe that New England, and specifically Boston, this area, is waiting for somebody to approach topics differently. And I think we do that here. I'm not going to go through my track record in radio. I'll just tell you, did a pretty decent job doing it my way. So I appreciate every single one of you jumping on. Trenton for the $20 super chat. Means the world. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Also, of course, we've got Spotify. We have got Apple Pods. Rate and review. That helps us as well if you're listening or watching on demand. All right, let's move on to the next topic. That's the draft. Mayo talked about the draft. They're open. They're open to trading the number 3 pick, but they're also open to taking the player. Quote, if someone offers a bag, as we would say, a lot of first-round picks, we definitely have to talk about those things as we continue to put together the team. Translation, if you want to call us about the 3rd pick in the draft, you better pay up. Okay? If you think we're going to trade the third pick in this draft for a future first round pick and a couple of later picks, you are out of your gosh damn mind. We are not interested in doing that whatsoever. So I thought this was the perfect way for Mayo and Elliott Wolf via Mayo to put this out there. If we get offered the bag, we will entertain that bag of picks. But don't be calling us and wasting our time, because we know how valuable this pick is. And when you're coming off of a 4-win season, you have to entertain everything. If someone goes bananas and they offer you, 3 first-round picks, if they offer you the world, then you have to at least entertain that offer. You have to. It'd be irresponsible to not have a conversation about a Godfather offer if it is given to you. I still say if you're 100% in love with the guy at 3, then you draft that guy. But you don't turn down offers. You take them all in, and you see what people are willing to give for that pick. I mean, if somebody, if the New York Giants call you and they want to move up from 6 to 3, and they offer you, a couple of second-round picks this year that they have. They offer you a first-round pick next year and another pick next year. And, you're not totally in love with somebody at number 3. Then you have that conversation. The Patriots have to be open for business and do what's best for that business, not only in the short term, but in the long term. So, of course, you take offers. And if there's a Godfather offer on the table, then you discuss that. As far as trading back and filling roster roles, Mayo said, quote, "The guaranteed way to win is to accumulate more picks." Now, I think this is a very, very revealing comment from Mayo. And I think we have to appreciate what he said. The guaranteed way to win is to accumulate more picks. This is a draft and develop operation. And it takes time when you draft guys and develop them. So if you're looking for the quick fix, if you're looking to go out and spend $200 million guaranteed on a bunch of outside guys, that is not how we're going to do it. The way that you have sustained success in the NFL is by accumulating picks and nailing at least some of those picks. And Mayo is absolutely right. As much as people don't want to hear about the draft, how did Cincinnati make the turnaround? How is Kansas City in the middle of their success? How has San Francisco been contending year in and year out? How did the Houston Texans make a turnaround last year? How did the Buffalo Bills get it going? How did the Detroit Lions, of all teams, become respectable and dangerous? Every contending team in the NFL, they do it through the draft. The Baltimore Ravens is another example. Draft and develop. Now you have to hit, but it's going to take patience. Doesn't mean you can't add people this offseason. We've talked about it, right? Doesn't mean you don't offer Calvin Ridley $40 million guaranteed because you think he could solve one of the biggest problems on your roster. You're not turning your nose to everybody, and you're not completely dismissing free agency. But what you are doing is you are focusing on the most important task, which is to draft well and develop those guys. You can accentuate the rest of your roster through free agency, but it starts with the draft. And that's why people acting as if this offseason is already over a month before the draft, they're crazy. Or they're doing it with ulterior motives. Because it's just frankly disingenuous to judge an offseason a month before the draft. What do you think Cincinnati's offseason was like before they drafted Joe Burrow and T. Higgins? What was it like before they drafted Jamar Chase? What was Houston's offseason? We went through this during a podcast within the last week or two. Houston's free agency last year. People weren't going crazy over Houston signing this guy and that guy, but they nailed the freaking draft. They got super aggressive in late April and got C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, and then they drafted Tank Dell. All right, how about Drake May? Here's what Mayo had to say about May, and this is very interesting. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. If you're jumping in, give us that thumbs up. More thumbs means more eyeballs. Let's expand this brand and build a community. Like and subscribe. Trying to hit 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th. You can help us do that. We're at 300 subscriptions away from hitting our goal. Here's what Jerod Mayo said about Drake May. May had a fantastic interview at the Combine. He brings a lot of energy. You can tell he has that leadership ability. Also, the exciting part about a guy like May, there is really no ceiling. In saying that, when we're trying to put together this roster, I know a lot of people look at the ceiling, but, and this is a very, very interesting point that Mayo made talking about Drake May, but you also have to look at how low is the floor. Stick a pin in that. I would say a guy like May, he has a lot of room to grow. He's a young guy. Honestly, he hasn't played football nearly as much as these other guys. Stick a pin in that. So that's definitely something we've looked at, but he's definitely going to develop. Okay. I thought Jerod Mayo's comments regarding Drake May were very, very revealing. If you pay attention to the two comments I said stick a pin in, number one, you have to look at how low is the floor. And then number two, he hasn't played football nearly as much as these other guys. There's a pro and there's a con, right? Let's start here. How low is the floor? Jerod saying that tells us they don't believe May is ready right now. That's what I took from that comment. They don't believe that Drake May is ready. They don't believe that Drake May is a guy that you draft and you just hand the keys to. Now, can he win them over and prove to be ready during a great camp and preseason? Sure. Always possible. But when Mayo says, when you're looking at somebody like Drake May, you also have to think about how low the floor is. That is a very revealing comment. He didn't have to say that. So what he's telling us is, yeah, when we're evaluating May, the ceiling, hey, MJ, is it the roof? The ceiling is so high, there really is no ceiling with May if he hits his potential. However, when they're evaluating him, they're also looking at the floor, and they're acknowledging that this guy could have a very low floor. So, again, that tells me if they do like Drake May, they're not sold on this thought that, hey, you just stick pick and then he plays right away. Because I don't think you bring up the floor if you feel that way. If you feel like May is a day one starter right now, you are committed to that idea, then you don't even bring up the floor. You only bring up the floor because you want people to understand that if you do draft this guy, we got to go slowly with him. He's not going to jump right onto the field and be a difference maker. We've got to go slowly. We've talked about the risk with Drake May. May has tons of potential. He's got ridiculous arm talent, great athleticism for his size, has a tremendous frame. All of those things. Had a terrific 2022. Off platform, he does things that not many other guys can do. But there is inherently a risk with Drake May. His footwork, inconsistent. His mechanics, inconsistent. His decision-making at times will make you scratch your head. He misses some of the easy throws. So there is a risk with May. And Jerod Mayo underlined that risk today by saying, we also have to look at how low the floor is with some guys. And that was in the context of the Drake May conversation in question, which leads you to the next thing. The Patriots at number 3. We've said you have to love the guy. Mayo said that today. You have to love the guy. So if you love the guy, that means you have a consensus that everybody in the room, Elliott Wolf, Mayo, Van Pelt, McCartney, McAdoo, everybody that is in that room, you go to a man and they say, yes, Drake May is the guy. Drake May is the guy. So, can they build a consensus regarding May? If Mayo is questioning how low the floor is, are there other guys in that room that are questioning how low the floor is? Because if there is any question, then I don't think they draft Drake May at 3. They have to be fully convinced as a room that this guy is the guy. So when Mayo brings up the floor, I think that is very important. Very important. Also important is the inexperience that Mayo brought up. We talked about this last week on the podcast. Bucky Brooks at Fox Sports. He looked at the quarterbacks that were taken in the top 10. The common denominator of a quarterback taken in the top 10 becoming a star, the one common denominator was experience at the collegiate level. Jaden Daniels has a ton of experience at the collegiate level. Drake May does not. So that is something that Mayo and company are discussing. As he said, honestly, May hasn't played football nearly as much as these other guys. That's definitely something we've looked at. So they're looking at the floor. They're looking at the lack of experience as they evaluate him. They understand that he has the tools, very toolsy, has big-time potential, but he comes with risk, and he's inexperienced. So just judging by what Mayo had to say regarding Drake May, my takeaway is that they may be enamored with what he might be able to do a year or two from now, but they are considering and they are appreciating the risk that he also brings to the table. And they are still trying to map out whether or not May can be the guy. And if he is the guy, they're getting that message out there early to the fans. Y'all got to be patient because it's going to take some time with him. So if the premise is that May's not ready, then you wonder, would the Patriots look at J.J. McCarthy and say, well, we don't think McCarthy is quite ready either, but we think McCarthy could be better in 2025 than Drake May could be in 2025. And this is what's so difficult. This is what is so difficult. The inexact science, the evaluation of the quarterback position. What do they bring mentally? Are they mentally there? Do they have the capability to lead the room? If things go badly, how do they react to the adversity? We saw Mac Jones wasn't great with some of those things. So how does the guy mentally handle all of it? Answering the questions when you lose, being the face of the franchise. That component is unknown to most of the outside world. Secondly, you're trying to project who's going to be the best quarterback. This is not about who the best quarterback is right now. It's about who do you think is going to be the best quarterback in 2026 and 2027. That's who you want to draft at number 3. You don't want to draft somebody at number 3 who hits their ceiling within the next 18 months and then they are who they are. You want to draft somebody that you believe can be that guy on the base, but build off of it and get better and better. So maybe the Patriots look at Drake May and say, we think he's going to be good in 2025. However, we actually think J.J. McCarthy is going to be better than May down the road. That's a part of the conversation. It's not about just what you saw at Michigan and UNC, respectively. What do you think they're going to become? And if you're the Patriots, if you're looking at the quarterback class in 2025, do you think those guys are going to be better than Drake May and J.J. McCarthy and maybe Jaden Daniels a year from now. It's all part of the question and answer process, the evaluation. Mayo said when he started watching the quarterbacks in this draft, he thought it was a three-man race. We know those three guys, right? Got to be talking about Williams, Daniels, and May. Now, after going to some pro days, Mayo said that he believes there are 5 quarterbacks that could have solid futures. 5 guys. So let's remember this. The Patriots have been to the pro days of J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix. This week, Jaden Daniels and Drake May will have their pro days. The Patriots also went to Caleb Williams' pro day. We know Williams is going to be with the Chicago Bears. So Jerod Mayo just told us today he did not necessarily think that J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix were starting quarterbacks, guys that could have solid futures. Then Jerod Mayo told us today that he believes there are 5 guys who could have solid futures at that position, which tells me Jerod Mayo was won over by McCarthy and Bo Nix's pro days. After watching the pro days, after talking to those guys, he added them to the list. So before the pro day process, there's 3 guys we're interested in, 3 guys we believe in. After J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix have their pro day, there's 5. So Mayo liked what he saw with both of those guys, which means to me, I don't think Bo Nix is in the mix at 3. I think we now have to take J.J. McCarthy seriously. I think we have to look at McCarthy and realize that he might be more involved in this conversation than we might have thought. Let's continue to give us that thumbs up. Don't forget, every like means the world to me. That's how we smack that YouTube algorithm in the face. So give us that like, give us that thumbs up. It takes a second of your time. Also subscribe. Trying to hit 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th. We're just under 300 away from that number. We can get there, but we've got to keep pushing. More likes, more subscribers. That's what we do. Rate and review as well. And if you like how I do business, you can check out the Patreon exclusive content not covered on this podcast, Q&As, mailbags, exclusive pods, all of it. Patreon.com/Nick Cattles, Cattles, $5 a month. So I think after that comment today from Mayo, we have to consider J.J. McCarthy as part of this conversation. We talked about Michael Penix last week and how the Patriots seemingly are out on him. I would say that, today's press conference would make me believe further in that. It's not a guarantee. They could be pulling the absolute okey doke of the century here. But they didn't talk to Penix at the Combine. The big contingent is not splitting itself and going to both UNC and Washington's pro day. They're just going to UNC's. And then today, Mayo says there are 5 guys in this draft after the pro days they've gone to that would have solid futures or could have solid futures at the quarterback position. And last time I checked, you've got Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, and Bo Nix. That would be the 5. So, again, it could be the ultimate okey doke, and the smokescreen season is alive and well. But just gathering from what has been done and said, it doesn't seem like the Patriots are in on Michael Penix. All right, let's continue. Mayo says he's pretty sure the Patriots will have Drake May, Daniels, and McCarthy in for pre-draft visits. Again, no Michael Penix. Doesn't sound like they're going to have Bo Nix in either for a pre-draft visit. So the more you comb through these comments regarding the draft from Jerod Mayo, the more it sounds like Daniels, May, and McCarthy are the true targets here that they're trying to evaluate. And McCarthy, again, certainly seems like he is more in this race than some people might have thought a week or two ago, including myself. Mayo said, if we take a quarterback at 3, it means we're convinced that this player is the future, as it should, Jerod, as it should. All right, some other quick notes here, because Jerod also talked about the current roster and some newsy items. He said that Jacoby Brissett is a starter in the NFL, a good mentor for a younger quarterback. I know there's a lot of low expectations for Brissett. I don't understand why people have such low expectations. I'm not telling you he's a great quarterback, but I think Brissett is good enough to start the first month, 2 months. And if you got to roll with him this year, then you got to roll with him this year. If you have to ease the rookie in, not the worst idea in the world. Evan Lazar did a great job writing about Jacoby Brissett last week. He looked at his 2022 film with Cleveland. And when you look at the stats, when Brissett started for Cleveland, 8th in total QBR, 10th in EPA per dropback. He had the 12th highest Pro Football Focus grade. The Browns scored the 11th most points in the league. As Lazar wrote, Brissett played like an above-average starter before being yanked for Deshaun Watson. Brissett made plays with his arm and leg, and a 4.5% big-time throw rate was tied for 10th best, according to Pro Football Focus. If you extrapolate his 11 starts over 17 games, Brissett's full season numbers 2 years ago would have been over 4,000 yards passing, 22 touchdowns, and 9 picks. Very respectable. And if you roll with Jacoby as QB1 because you draft the guy and you want to give him the year, whether it's Mayo or it's McCarthy, because I think many people believe if you draft Jaden Daniels, he's starting day one. If you draft the guy that you need to develop over the year and you have Jacoby as the QB1 who at least start 2024, if not for the entirety of 2024, then you're going to go through your run game. You're going to go through your defense. And I think you're going to ask Jacoby to manage the offense. Now, doesn't mean he can't create an explosive play. But I think that's what they would do. I think they would say, all right, we can roll with Brissett. We're gonna give him the keys as we develop this young quarterback. And we understand that he can create some plays off schedule and do some things. But this is, run game. Sprinkle in some deep, downfield throws, stretch the defense vertically, try to get some yak off of scheme, and, roll with our defense. And that's how we're going to win football games. All right, on Christian Barmore, it goes back to we want to keep our own players. We have had extension talks with Barmore. Love it. Christian Barmore is one of the top priorities remaining in this offseason. He is a blue-chip player. The Patriots need all of their blue-chip players that they can get. Barmore would be one of those guys. Sign him, keep him, extend him. That's what they should do. The Patriots are having conversations with Barmore about that extension. Matthew Judon. Jerod Mayo says that Judon is a premier rusher. He wants Judon to be a part of the Patriots puzzle moving forward. I don't have a problem with that. It's that balance. You want to remain competitive. You want to keep your productive players and leaders while you also try to accumulate picks for long-term sustained success. A little bit of a tongue twister, especially when you've been talking straight for 48 minutes. You have to keep Judon with, not going out there and getting a big ticket item. Whether they tried to or not, we don't know. But because they did not get that big ticket edge item, then you bring back Uche, you bring back Anthony Jennings. I don't think you can trade Matthew Judon because I don't think you have enough impact on the edge if you do that. So I think it's smart to give Judon that bump, pay him a little bit more this year, see if you could even hammer out, tacking on an extra year or two. But I think keeping Judon in the program makes a ton of sense. A ton of sense when you look at the rest of this defense. Mike Onwenu. Mayo says Onwenu will start at right tackle. Quote, that's where he will start. But once again, Big Mike can play multiple positions. I say start Onwenu at right tackle. Give him the full offseason to train as a right tackle. Give him the entire preseason and camp season of work at right tackle. and give him 2024 planned as a right tackle. Michael Wenu needs consistency. He's been shuffling back and forth between guard and tackle because the Patriots were incapable of setting a solidified offensive line. You start doing that by playing guys in positions and sticking with it. Right now, David Andrews, center, right guard, Sidy Sow, right tackle, Michael Wenu. The right side of your offensive line should be set, and you should be ready to roll with it. So just keep him there. If Owenu's your right tackle, keep his big tuchus right there at right tackle. Don't be moving him around. Don't be shuffling. If he has one bad week at right tackle, don't shove him back at guard. Let him develop at tackle. That should be the plan. Many people wondering about Troy Brown. He will have a skill development role with the team, similar to Joe Kim, writes Mike Reese on the defensive side. Brown will work with skill position players across the board. So Troy Brown on the coaching staff, skill development role. He'll work with a bunch of dudes. Marte Mapu, we've been wondering, linebacker or safety? Mayo said today that Mapu will work in the safety room. So as you're looking at this roster and we're wondering about free safety and maybe safety depth, Mayo told us today that Marte Mapu will be a safety. So he's not going to be in that linebacker room. Sion Takitaki made this more likely because what Takitaki does is he works in coverage, sideline to sideline. That's what you were thinking Marte Mapu might do if he was going to play linebacker. So Takitaki fills that role. Mapu will work exclusively at safety. I think the jury is still out. I don't know if Mapu can play safety, but similar to what I just said about Michael Wenu, Marte Mapu, if you say he's going to be in the safety room, then you got to keep him in the safety room, and you got to try to continue to develop that guy. Don't be going back and forth. Don't make him a quote-unquote hybrid. Give him the position. He is going to be a safety, and you work with him at safety. Another note, and this one got me a little concerned. Chuck Okorafor was mentioned when Mayo was asked about players currently competing at left tackle. I don't want this. I don't want Okorafor, who has played 2 snaps his entire NFL career at left tackle. I don't want him as your starting left tackle. I'm afraid of that. I am concerned by that. I do not want Okorafor at left tackle while you're developing Michael Wenu as a full-time right tackle. I think that combination is scary. And not in a good way. I will not be happy. I will be downright disappointed if you've got Michael Wenu right tackle, Chuck Okorafor left tackle, week 1. Now, maybe they'll surprise me, and I'll pop onto this podcast with egg on my face. But if you're going into this season with that as the plan, if that ends up being the plan at tackle, I have major concerns. And I would not be putting any rookie quarterback out there behind a developing right tackle in Michael Wenu and Chuck Okorafor at left tackle when he's played 2 snaps at the NFL level on the left side. I do not want the Okorafor-Owenu tackle combination. I do not want it. Sign a vet guy who's played there before. Draft somebody who you believe can start day 1 on the left side. Do not give me Chuck Okorafor and Michael Wenu as your tackles. Don't do it. Would not be in favor of that. All right, it was a long one today. Went about an hour. Hopefully you enjoyed all of the conversation. Jerod Mayo had a lot to say, man, a lot to say. I think we tried to dig in as much as we could. Hopefully we got some answers. I thought it was a very, very interesting session that Mayo had. Thanks for joining me as always, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up before you go. A quick like doesn't mean a ton to you, but it means a lot to us. So give us that thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 3,000 subscriptions by April 8th. If you like what we do here, that's how you can support us. So don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you listen on Spotify, Apple Pods, head over to YouTube and click that like button. You can help us out there, rate and review. Also, Spotify, Apple Pods. Appreciate you. Back tomorrow unless there's big time breaking news. This has been the Nick Cattle Show.